So this is Al McCarn. This is a special edition of our Reunion Roadmap podcast. So Gidon Ariel of Root Source has graciously agreed to join us, and we'll talk about the current situation in Israel as we are recording. It is the evening of May 7th in Israel. It is a day after Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day. It is also the 79th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. So two significant days. And the news of the day, the long-awaited IDF operation in Gaza, in Rafah, has begun. And we've seen pictures of the Israeli flag flying from the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing into Egypt. So, Gidon, let's just start there. The Rafah operation has begun. What's the latest news?
Well, hi, Al. I'd like to say, before we talk about the latest news, a little something about what things are called. It makes sense to call that the Rafah crossing because it's the crossing into Rafah. But Rafah has been given a pretty bum name over the past few months. First of all, nobody's ever heard of Rafah before a few months ago. And by the way, that's not what we call it. I'm not sure what they call it in Gaza in Arabic, but in Hebrew it's called Rafiyah. So that's related. But that crossing is called in Hebrew the Kerem Shalom crossing. In other words, the vineyard of peace. So that, again, I don't know what Rafah means in Arabic to contrast it, but in Israel, as far as Israel is concerned, we are extending our hand in peace in general, and that's how it all started. Most of the communities, if not all of the communities, the kibbutz, mostly kibbutz communities, virtually on the Gaza border, for decades and decades, since the 50s and 40s, and some of those communities have been there since the 30s, I think.
Yeah.
Of the previous century. They always wanted to have peaceful relationships with Gazans. And I'm sure that you and many of your listeners have also heard that at least in some cases, the people of these kibbutzim had very good relationships with friends in Gaza, but it turned into just a big scam, and that's a weak word to describe that some of these erstwhile friends were actually gathering intelligence and information in order to kill these so-called friends of theirs. And that's what happened. Hundreds of people were killed and kidnapped, many of them with the intelligence of people who were saying, oh, he's a friend of mine. So it's really the thing that was hurt worst was peacemaking efforts. And the fact that Israel is now being pressured to, well, now's our opportunity to create a Palestinian state. I have not had a chance to talk to anybody who holds that position. I don't know if anybody except for people who are getting a lot of money to say it really do hold such a position. But it's the craziest thing. Can you imagine if the ISIS somebody killed hundreds of people and said, "Great, this is a perfect opportunity in the state." It doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, but you were asking about what's the latest on the ground. Okay, for all the people, if we are recording this live, so if anybody's listening to it live, I doubt it. Usually, people don't notice that it's live. I don't announce it in advance, but sometimes by mistake people come on live. Right now, what I've been hearing over the day, and not too frequently, and I don't listen to the news on the hour every hour like I used to, that certainly last night, I think it was last night at about 10 o'clock p.m., I heard that the Israeli army started their maneuver into the Rafah area. And throughout the day, I started seeing through some of the WhatsApp groups that I subscribe to pictures, videos of the Israeli army going to Rafah with the response and the welcome, as it were, being all but a white flag. In other words, there was nobody there to see the Israeli army coming in, which can be one of two things, I think, just off the top of my head. Either the big talking Hamas leadership and warriors are paper tigers. They all ran away, which that's happened in world history before, that people talk big and then run big. Or, and this, of course, is something that I'm sure the Israeli army is thinking about. They are waiting for us to fall into their traps, and so they're giving us to feel, us being the Israeli army and the soldiers, to feel, oh, this is going to be a walk in the park. But right now it has been, or at least as of the last time I checked my WhatsApp, which was probably about an hour ago. And hopefully it'll continue to be. But I would not suggest, if any Hamasnikim are listening to us, for them to say, "Oh, I think it's a walk in the park. That's a great opportunity." Now, no, don't test us. That is what the Israeli army says to its enemies. Do not test us. We will not fight if you don't fight against us. But don't try it. That's the answer.
Yeah, well, given the last going on 7 months of operations, with lots of lessons learned of fighting in Gaza, underneath Gaza, I expect the IDF is going in with eyes and ears open, and I would hope and pray and expect they won't be surprised in a big way, regardless what happens.
Yes.
What is your expectation? What do you think will be the outcome of this military operation?
Well, again, I'm speaking obviously as Gidon Ariel, but also I think as an Israeli. I'm even though I'm not the news junkie that I used to be, it's a little hard not to be a little bit involved with the news. I think that what's going on in Israel is not just the military situation. We've got a lot of politics going on and a lot of questionable information, I will call it. In other words, I don't have to tell you that when you get your information from the mainstream media and also from various social media, it's very hard to tell what's true and what's not true nowadays, and what is being spinned in one way or another way. What is reality over here? So it always seems to me that the right is ascending and the left is starting to pull out whatever battle gear or ammunition, or maybe that's a little bit too military metaphorical to use, but whatever tools it has as true or not true, in order to try to push off the right's victory. So here in Israel, it even has a name, basically, the Rak Lo Bibi, just not Netanyahu. Anybody but Netanyahu is what seems to be a lot of the people on the other side have become. And so I think that some of these what I think is just things that I see a little bit on Twitter. So some people say, listen, on the one hand, I don't like Bibi, and I really would like him out. But on the other hand, you don't switch horses midstream. It was the middle of a war, and he seems to be doing okay, and we got to trust him. You really have to trust him. If you say, listen, I don't trust this general, or I don't trust this president in the middle of a war, then you're basically cutting off the branch that you're sitting on. You're in a war. This is not. You don't have the luxury of saying, let's hold early elections. United States, they don't know from early elections. Here in Israel, we have early elections like when a store opens late. It's a big deal if something happens later. But not in the middle of a war. I think it's a bad idea, and I think that most people think that. And as much as people who are rabidly anti-Netanyahu, they're not getting any traction now. And ultimately, I think that Netanyahu is going to win this war, in spite of the spins that are being spun against him from the left and the right. Because the people to my right are saying Netanyahu is not strong enough on the right. Come on. He should have gone in a half a year ago. He should have this and he should have that. He's not strong enough. You know what? When I will be invited by Netanyahu to be his advisor, and he'll come into the first meeting and say, okay, Gidon, you tell me what to do, then I'll think about that. Up until then, nobody's asking me, and I think that he's probably doing a pretty darn good job. Don't forget that he's won, I don't know, about 5 elections. He's the longest sitting prime minister in Israel's history. I would venture to say one of the longest sitting leaders of any democratic country. And and I don't see anybody else taking over. So I think that and ultimately, if we can remember why we're here, and that's because we're people of faith. I really think that God is in charge. And I don't know, I'm not God. I didn't write the script for God. He wrote it himself and he's not sharing it. And but I trust him that it's going to come out well at the end. And so I think that ultimately, back to your question, I don't know how long the war cabinet thinks that this current maneuver is going to take. I don't know how long they think they will need to keep the war going officially as a war. Remember, the fact that that they've declared war, and they declared war that first Saturday on October 7th. I immediately realized that, and I didn't even bother looking into it. Declaring war has legal ramifications, has economic ramifications. The government is entitled to do certain things, and a government doing things means money, that they can't do unless the war is declared. So, on the other hand, that it's not the right way to run a country in a state of war. So there's a lot of pressure on both sides. But once they'll decide that the war is over, I'm sure that many people will say, it took him too long to declare the war isn't over. And other people say, why did he declare the war is over? We're not really done. But I trust that the war will be over. I don't know if it'll be in a few days. In other words, if Hamas surrenders means, here I am, come put handcuffs on me and take me to jail. That's what surrender means. Surrender doesn't mean, well, we've decided to stop fighting, but we're still hiding.
Yep.
So once Hamas surrenders, and Israel then decides what they're going to do with the Gaza Strip, and hopefully it'll be something that we can stomach. But at that point, hopefully, the people who are living in the South will be able to feel 100% safe in their homes. That, I hope and believe, is what the goal of this goal of this war is. But then we have to remember that we have at least 2 other fronts.
Yes.
They are the northern front, where over 100,000 Israelis are also evacuated from their homes. They have to come back. They have to feel 100% safe and secure. And that means that we are probably going to have to fight a war against Hezbollah. And so I don't know if that's going to take another half a year. Who knows? Really don't know anything. But it all comes from Iran. So we had a short fight with Iran, miraculous. And when I say miraculous, I mean kol hakavod to the Israeli army and to the Israeli government, the Israeli war cabinet, who did a miraculous job of fighting off those 500 or so rockets. I'm sure that you and most of the listeners here saw some of those rockets that fell from the sky after they were shot down.
Yeah.
We're talking about something about the size of a city bus, for God's sakes, flying. I don't know how far away is it, 1,000 miles? I don't know how far away it is from Iran. It's crazy. Yet we managed to shoot most of them down. Most meaning out of 500, maybe a half a dozen we didn't come out as we would have hoped. Now, if we or somebody else, or maybe there'll be an upheaval in Iran, and Iran will no, I'm not giving you any inside information. I'm just wishful thinking. Iran stops being not only a threat to Israel, but really a threat to world peace, then the whole dominoes and house of cards of the satellites of Iran, including Hezbollah, including Hamas, including ISIS, and frankly, and the Houthis, whoever they are down there in Yemen. Frankly, domino effect, I think, will have a big impact also on North Korea. In other words, I think that if the whole world would just realize, let's get rid of the head of the snake, then the whole world would be in a better place. So really, I think there's some divine heavenly battle going on that people are being blinded. So many people of responsibility are blinded to that obviousness that without Iran, the world would be a much more peaceful place.
Yeah, or at least without Iran, without the current leadership in Iran.
Of course. I don't mean that how many 90 million people, so many of whom are peace loving. We've seen that all over WhatsApp, all over Facebook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yes, so I do hope that we will. I remember a war that ended in Israel. It was a strange war. It was the war of Operation Desert Shield, I believe it was called.
Yes.
And that was we called it the Gulf War. And for a certain number of days, I think it was 39 days, actually it was 39 missiles that were shot at us. But we didn't fight back. It was crazy at the time. But I do remember that war ended on Purim, biblical proportions. It ended on the holiday of Purim. In other words, that was the day that we replaced our gas masks that we were carrying around with our Purim masks. It's crazy. But it just happened in one day. Mm-hmm. And I see no reason why the current war with Hamas cannot end in one day. I think we can go to sleep not seeing anything is going to happen and wake up in the morning that the government says, you know what, the war is over. However, I don't see that happening before. I don't see that happening in the north before we actually go to battle. But halavai, it should only be God's will that that's what's going to happen in Iran. And like I said, if that happens in Iran, then maybe the Hezbollah will run away with their tails between their legs, because it all follow the money. If they don't get the money from Iran, then they're not going to be able to do anything. That's it. So I'm pretty optimistic on that point.
Yeah, that's it just occurred to me regarding Purim that Iranian or Persian regime was hostile to the Jewish people of Israel until there was an overnight regime change.
Wow, you're absolutely right. So there you go. V'nafochu. The Christians that I love so much, many of them, their favorite verse is Esther 4:14, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is, who knows if this is not the time that God has bid for you to, whatever the English, I know it in Hebrew much better.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows if you have been brought to the kingdom for such a time as this.
For such a time as this.
Yes.
The Jews' favorite verse, and there are a lot of favorite verses. This is the one that just came to my mind now, is v'nafochu, and things turned over. Let me find the chapter and verse. 1 second. There it is. 1 second. It is Esther 9, verse 1. And it happened on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, in the 13th day of that month, that the edict of the king and his rule came to be done on the day that the day that the enemies of the Jewish people thought to be on top of them, to overcome and to rule over them, just the opposite. Things turned over, flipped 180 degrees. That the Jews ruled over the ones that they hated, and the ones that hated them. So let's hope that will happen. That's a famous verse, a famous phrase, v'nafochu.
Okay, so this gets to my next question. I mean, we've got the biblical record. I could go back to, let's see, Gideon fighting those 120,000 Midianites and Amalekites. All of a sudden, everything turns over. Or David, all of a sudden, things turn over. He's king. And it extends into modern history as well. Jewish people almost annihilated in the Shoah, the Holocaust, and then, boom, there's the state of Israel. So...
Yep.
And now we're seeing record levels of anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish hate, so much of it, all of it, I think, unfounded, unreasonable, crazy. It's happening all over, right here in America. Why is it always the Jewish people who are the targets? I could give you an answer, but I want to hear your answer. Why the Jews always?
Well, hold on to that question. First of all, here's a spoiler. You're not the first person to ask that question.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But I'd first like to point out that this is happening a lot because of mainstream media and social media. And again, I don't usually like to say, what do they call it, the conspiracy theories or something like that. I think I saw a headline of an article about George Soros. I'm a big believer in follow the money.
Yes.
But I think that a lot of this money is, and it's pretty obvious that this is a well orchestrated thing that's going on. The fact that all of these tents came from the same place very clearly. But I think that it's orchestrated in order for it to be the number one thing in the news cycle. And again, I just saw somewhere that they took a poll of American university students. I don't know if it's all university students or just of Columbia or I don't know where. And they said, what are the things that bother you most? 9 things. And the 9th, and one of those things was the problems in Gaza or in Palestine, and that was dead last. So in other words, most people don't really care about it. It really makes a lot of sense. So in other words, I do think that what's happening in the university campuses are well orchestrated, prepared, rehearsed agitation committed by professional agitators. Most of the people there, they're not even students. And the media is only too happy to keep it boiling. And the left-wing university leadership, I don't think they're happy to keep it boiling, but they're very hesitant, I would say afraid, to come down hard against it. So it keeps on boiling over there. Again, I don't know. Maybe since now Rafah is actually happening. I don't think that we haven't seen too much as far as the American university campuses story, how strong that is going on. I think also people I don't know, but I don't know. But what I wanted to say is I don't think that the situation is as bad as the mainstream media and the interested social media. In other words, the social media content generators who have an interest in keeping the flames going. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's terrible, but I think it's, like I said, orchestrated and rehearsed and but ultimately I think that it's the swan song of these Ivy League colleges. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Mm.
You know, if they were able to say, well, you know, there are two sides to every story, and David and Goliath. So obviously Israel is Goliath, so we're on David's side, and blah blah blah. It's you know, it's politically correct to do something like that, to say that kind of thing. You seem to be puzzled by what I'm saying. Maybe I'm not speaking clearly.
No, you're saying it right. I get it.
But it's always been on a low flame. You know, the students for Palestine had a table in the main square, and the Hillel had a table in the main square. Maybe they yelled a little bit. If an Israeli speaker came, they yelled a little bit, but they were pretty much pushing the envelope, but not much more than that. But what was going on over here with all of this horrific violence is just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. And I can't think of anybody who said, well, we'll just wait until everything boils over and then we'll pretend that nothing happened and we'll continue to pay $100,000 for a Harvard education. Forget it. They're going to find something else to do. You'd have to be really stupid to think that that's what you got to do now. I mean, really. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So what is going to happen with American universities, I don't know. But I think that it's just a harbinger of what's going to happen in America in 10 or 20 years. I don't think that you're going to have, let's say that today, these are the people who are the leaders of Ivy League schools. You know, if the president of the Ivy League school is Muhammad Akbar, I don't know. They're all these Muslims over there. You know, obviously, you know, they're doctors and professors and all that. But bottom line, they're a lot closer. There are a lot fewer steps away. What do they call it? A lot fewer degrees of separation from Hamas than Bernard Shapiro, if you know what I mean. Yes. Who was the president of Barnard College 30 years ago. So and if that's what it means, that means that the president of the Yale law society, who's going to be the president of the United States in 30 years, this is it. This is where he came from. So it's a problem. It's a big problem for the United States, I see. Very, very big problem.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let me see if I can put that in perspective. It might be similar to the Hitler Youth of the 1930s became the Bundestag members and politicians and mayors of the 1970s.
Yeah, and it's hard to. You're talking about in
Germany.
In Germany,
yeah.
But the Nazi army was eradicated, was totally destroyed in the late 40s, in the mid 40s. So
big difference there.
I don't see that happening in the ultra left in the United States.
No, and I don't either. We have alarms going off, and this is a wake-up call to deal now with the situation before it becomes that existential crisis.
But Al, who is the we that have to do this?
Yes, who is the we?
Right? It seems to me, again, I mentioned this before to somebody. It's just hard to believe. It's just impossible to understand how I'm getting my information and I'm seeing the videos that I'm seeing. I'll give you an example. I know, like I said, I'm on Twitter a lot when I've got nothing better to do. So I see all of these embarrassing videos of President Biden, stumbling and stammering. But then I see videos of him not stammering, maybe speaking a little bit slow, but that's okay. So I said, wait a second. Is it possible that people on the left are simply not seeing at all what I'm seeing? I think that that's the situation. So I think that really it's become so much that people do not see reality, do not agree upon what actual reality is. We see candidate Trump. We see him being Trump. There's no question that that Trump is Trump. Nobody says that this guy is a symbol of upstanding. Want my of exemplary behavior. But on the other hand, I'm pretty sure that my left-wing friends are seeing stuff that I'm not seeing, and if they're or they're seeing it in much stronger doses than I'm seeing it, so it doesn't bother me as much. Because otherwise, when they say, "How the heck could you even fathom for considering voting for that guy?" Well, that's exactly what my friends to my right are saying about Biden.
Right.
So what's going to be? We've painted we in the United States and in the West in general as consumers of mainstream media and social media have painted ourselves into the corner of really not, not being able to trust what we see. And that is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is actually believing what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So
okay.
What is that?
And this is why my biggest concern is for this younger generation, because old guys like you and me, we've been around for a while. We have some pretty good filters and can discern what's true and not within a degree of, error and so on.
Yeah.
But a college sophomore doesn't have that experience.
I know the only experience that he has is what we clearly see as engineered narrative. And we don't even, I mean, you said before, in the old days, I could tell what's now. I can't even tell. Even my own people, I can't tell. That doesn't sound right to me.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let me ask another hard question. I don't know. So I'm hearing through my WhatsApp contacts and others of that one phrase that sticks with me: Jewish life in the diaspora is shutting down, and increasing calls for, if you don't live in Israel, get out now and come home. What do you think of that? Is it time?
I think I was just on another interview. Yeah, I made Aliyah. No, I think it was interacting with somebody on Twitter. I keep on plugging Twitter over here. People might think that I have shares in it or something. I moved to Israel when I was 15, about 45 years ago, and I think that it was a great move. And I think that most people who have moved to Israel are managing here. Listen. The very fact that there are these polls and surveys taken that Israel is the fourth happiest place to live in the world, following those boring places called the Netherlands and Switzerland and Sweden, I think. So and it is. I'm tremendously happy, and I think that my whole family is happy. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people who are sad here, and there aren't people who are depressed here, and all sorts of stuff like that. But ultimately, it's the situation here breeds happiness. And ultimately, I think that that's what people want. That's what people want to live. I don't want to live anywhere where I can't go to see a Broadway play every week. Okay, listen, if that's what your life is, then I guess I'm moving to Jerusalem or to Hebron so quickly. But Israel has become now, as somebody who has moved back and forth, and again, the stuff that's important for me, what counts for me is a good Wi-Fi signal and a good internet, so that my Zoom calls don't crash. Frankly, I found when I travel to America that that is sometimes not as good as what I have here in the middle of nowhere, as you can see where I live. So I'm happy here. Obviously, there are a lot of other things that I'm happy about. I'm happy that virtually everybody here, of course, I exaggerate a bit. Virtually everybody here is a relative of mine. It's my cousin, it's my friend, it's my brother. I'm happy of the way that the Israeli way of life is we don't have road rage as much here. People might yell at each other, but afterwards they clap each other on the shoulder and go out for a beer or something like that. And I'm happy that the Bible is the Shakespeare, if you will, of my country. In other words, if somebody wants to talk using a language, a rich language, they will use aphorisms and phrases from the Bible. We just mentioned that earlier in our talk. Mm. When I say v'na'afochu, when things turn over, that's something that you can hear on the radio. The non-religious disc jockey saying or whatever. So it's a happy place to live. Is it happy when I hear that somebody died in a war? No. But life is not just to be afraid. Life is to be lived fully and to be lived significantly. And I think that and not to mention, certainly, but yes to mention, that the significance of the state of Israel, if you are a historically minded religious Zionist like I am, anywhere on that spectrum, we're talking about biblical prophecies becoming realized and coming true in our generation in the state of Israel. So you have to have a lot of you have to have a lot of cognitive dissonance not to say, wow, I want to be there when that's happening.
Yeah.
But people have that because they've been used to 2,000 years of exile. So you know what they say, you can take the Jew out of exile. It's harder to take the exile out of the Jew.
Oh, that I get. And well, where you're living right now, and you have such a great view out of the back of your house. I'm glad to have seen that. And you're just down the street from a chocolate factory. What better could be? Well, here's what's better. You're at the place that the patriarchs of Israel were living, doing business, where Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, their wives, their children, their grandchildren, they were wandering all over that place. So you're home.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned take the Jews out of exile, but it's hard to take the exile of the Jew. Is that what a typical Jewish person living in, say, Brooklyn or Miami, is that what they're missing? That they don't understand where home really is?
It's you can't talk for everyone. There are probably Jews who don't feel that the state, first of all, there's a large, I don't know about majority, it's hard to count who's a Jew, but there are clearly a lot of Jews who feel very uncomfortable with the state of Israel. I'm not only talking about the ones that are, full speed anti-Israel, full speed pro-Palestinian. I'm talking about the ones that are more relatively left-wing and feel that they'd rather have a left-wing government than now there's a right-wing government, so they're uncomfortable with the state of Israel and they don't with the government of Israel, so they don't differentiate enough between the. I'm talking about the people who like Bibi, who like the right wing, who like But to get up and go, to move, I got so many problems nowadays. I don't finish my day with when I know how to turn my light on, I know how to turn the TV on, and I know which side of the road to drive on, and I know what time my train shows up, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I know, to move, people don't like moving so much.
Mhm.
And you talk about the people in New York, the people who were born in New York and still live in New York. It's the biggest Jewish community in the United States and arguably in the world. I was one of them. They've never moved. They moved across the tracks, when they were upwardly mobile a little bit, but they didn't change their lifestyle one iota. They didn't have to learn a new language. They didn't have to say, wait a second, this money, it's not $1. How much is this in real money? There's so much to think about when you move, and that's scary. And why should I move when I haven't been mugged in about 30 years? I haven't been mugged in 30 years. Okay, so I have 4 locks on my door. Okay, so people don't have locks on their doors. And my kid didn't, instead of going to college, he didn't have to go to the army and maybe get killed. So there's a lot of reasons for people not to move to Israel. I mean, not to argue it. You don't see too many people, again, in my social media circle. I don't see people arguing why I defend my justification for not moving Israel. Just the opposite. I see a lot of people saying, I really want to, but it's hard, and my mother and this and but ultimately, you guys talk about what do you talk about? The sheep and the goats or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Or the clouds and the I don't know what else. Are the people going to become to, you know what I'm talking about? It's some biblical metaphor for the Jews coming back to the land of Israel. Will they get on the magic carpet or something like that and fly comfortably, or will they be pushed or pulled without much preparation and without much readiness? That's the question. So
Yeah.
if you're saying what's going to be, I hope that more Jews will recognize that. I encourage people, and I think that a lot more people are. Listen, ultimately, my own family who lives still in the United States, I'm actually going to visit them in a couple of weeks. We're on WhatsApp all the time. We're a very comfortable and loving family, and they know what we think, and they think so also. But at least they are exposed to that in a relatively positive situation. It's not like we don't talk about Israel because they're so upset. They're not moving to Israel, and it always comes out to you telling me I got to move to Israel, and I don't want to. Let's not. No. They know that they'd love to, but they're busy. People are busy ultimately. So I hope that more and more people will be able to get here on time. Listen, there was a short time there when people could not move to Israel with no end in sight. Of course, I'm talking about the COVID.
Yes.
People could not get on a plane and go to Israel, even if they wanted to. So I don't know how many people. I have our friend Rivka and Elon Adler, who she said that, and many people are on record, when the Twin Towers came down, they turned to their spouses and said, buy a ticket. We're out of here. So I don't know how many people said that after COVID. I'm not talking about the people saying COVID is better. Just the very fact that you couldn't go to Israel. What if you really needed to go to Israel for some reason? You can't. What are you going to do? You're gonna take a wooden raft and swim to Israel? You got to fly. That's it. Nobody's going any other way. So I don't know. See, I'm not the right person. Even though I spent about 15 minutes answering that question, I'm not the right person to answer it.
Well, I think the bottom line is we just go through one day at a time because we can't predict the future. what's the ideal? Yeah, it would be great if half the Jews in the world who still live outside of Israel lived in Israel, but that's not reality. So, last question for all
It's
of
not.
us
It's not
Christians.
reality. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not reality. But we are a super reality people.
Yes.
And Yeshuat Hashem Keref Ayin, the salvation of the Lord comes in the twinkling of an eye, and things can change overnight. And I'm very optimistic, and I think that that's the kind of thing that will happen. One of the things. Listen, I've been here through a lot, but one of the things that I remember very, very strongly, very near that time that we took off our masks, was all of a sudden Operation Moses, when 15,000 or 30, I don't remember how many thousands, tens of thousands of Ethiopian Jews out of nowhere. We went to sleep on Saturday, not thinking about Ethiopian Jews at all. We woke up on Sunday morning, virtually all of Ethiopian Jewry had been airlifted out of Ethiopia to Israel, in not in one plane, but in one airlift of, I don't know how many dozens of planes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Guinness World Records for how many people it can fit on a plane. It was amazing. I remember hearing that. I woke up to the news on the radio, and I started crying. I said, "What the heck is going on here? What is this? From where? What? Yeshuat Hashem Keref Ayin. The salvation of the Lord is in the twinkling of an eye." So I don't know if that's going to happen in the United States. I don't know how it's going to happen. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen, because God is a way of not doing reruns.
Yes.
If he surprised us with one thing, he's not going to do the same thing again. He's going to find some other way to surprise us.
I definitely agree with you there. But last question for all us Christian Zionists out here who are growing closer and closer to the Jewish people, the state of Israel, what would you like to see us doing? How can we up our game?
Okay, you're asking me personally.
Yes.
The answer is befriend an Israeli Jewish person and spend time with them. Just like we're doing now, just like I reach out. I am now inviting everybody who's hearing this podcast or whatever, this video cast, seeing it. Here's my email address, Gidon at roottheirsource.com. Roottheirsource.com is my website. Reach out to me, and I'll be happy to have a time to spend 15, 20, a half hour, an hour with you just to talk and to meet you. And that is what you can do. Don't say, obviously there are going to be people saying what you can do now is pray. I'm not against prayer. What you can do now is come to Israel on a tour that a friend of mine happens to be the tour guide or a tour operator. Absolutely come to Israel. Give money to this nonprofit organization. Great. All of the answers that I'm sure that you've heard. My answer is, and always has been, always will be, befriend a Jewish person, be bold to engage with them, and have your friend in the land. And I will be happy to be your friend. If there are 100,000 people who are listening to this, then I'm going to change my default Zoom appointment from a half an hour to 10 minutes. But I want to meet all of you. If you believe in this kind of thing, like Al said, that we want to be close to Jews, then do it. Be close to a Jew. Find a Jew, an Israeli Jew, and be their friend. That's the answer.
Hey, there are more opportunities now than I can ever remember. I mean, there's you, there's Ari Abramovich, Jeremy Gimpel, there's David Krutman. They're all their organizations. You don't have to look far.
Pick up a copy of this book, Bridge Builders. We have about 30 Jews and about 40 Christians in this book. We opened it up to my friend Mark Biltz, who's a Christian, and here we're opening it up to let's find a Jew. Come on, here we go. My friend David Rubin. You know David?
We have not yet met.
Okay, so David Rubin is the head of the Shiloh Children's Fund, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. He's been active in this longer than I have. And there are many, many people like that. Look it up. Look up Bridge Builders, Gidon Ariel, if you will, Bridge Builders Root Source. We don't have bridgebuilders.com yet. And find some of these Jews and reach out to them.
But I'm sure that's one of many fine resources available at root-source.com.
That's right.
Well, Gidon, as always, it has been a great pleasure to talk to you. And maybe we'll get to meet when you're in the States in a couple of weeks. But if not, I'll look forward to when we are together again and get another chance to catch up.
My itinerary is tight. I'm going to be in Dallas, in Chicago, in Denver, in New York, in Panama, and in South Florida. So if any of those words ring a bell, and if you're think that you might be near me, then please reach out and we'll see if we can meet. If maybe you can come to one of the events that I'm holding, or maybe we'll be able to have a cup of coffee. I'd love it, even though I really like Zoom.
Hey, the world's at your fingertips. So.
Amen.
Well, thank you, Gidon.
Todah about you as well, Al, and looking forward to seeing you again. Let's do this more often.